This is off the cuff. This is certainly not how I plan to have a project I've been slowly working on begin, not with this by any stretch, but I think this is a particularly good morning to throw vlog out there in something I was going to call drive time thought dump. I'm not driving at the moment. I am in my car. Um, I've been piecing thoughts together while driving to work this morning. And I'm going to preface this with saying that 2 years ago, a little over 2 years ago, my personal life blew up. And this was not something I wanted, clearly. I was not really prepared for it to happen. I had no clear picture of what a series of personal life events was going to lead to, but I remember it clearly. It was a Wednesday afternoon, and everything changed. And I was alone in my office, and I had nowhere to go. Nothing I could do. I was at work. And here we are, 2+ years later. And somehow, some way, I was able to navigate that. And I'm not going to call myself an expert on how to deal with waking up one morning and discovering that your life might have turned upside down due to things wholly and totally beyond your control. But I do think that there are things that make sense, things that are sensible, things that at least they worked for me. And these are sort of things that I'd been forced to try before, use before, and they seem to work, and they still continue to do that when there's uncertainty and unhappiness, and maybe you find yourself in a fog over things that you wonder how they got to where they were, or how they could have happened. And without getting into the specifics of why I think that this is useful today, that's probably pretty obvious. One of the things that I think works, at least for me, is the distraction of a type of entertainment that has always appealed to me. I guess an interesting little note is I like a lot of genre, comic book related things, sci-fi, fantasy, worlds, ideas, stories that pull at interesting real world strings, but in conceptual ways that are wholly unrealistic. I like that. I always have. I've found myself lately with an increasing interest in some of these things, and I think that that's going to be really helpful and really applicable now. This morning, I was up earlier than usual, and I got to spend some time watching some YouTube videos on some theorizing about one of these genre properties. And after a couple of these, I'd found that 45 minutes had passed fairly rapidly. And not only had 45 minutes passed fairly rapidly, but I felt better after that 45 minutes than I did before that 45 minutes. And I had just the smallest sense of renewed energy. And because I had already been up early, it gave me more time to walk my dog before I had to pack up and go to work. And just that little bit of renewal, that little bit of nourishment from something that I enjoyed was enough to get me through. So I think that when you find yourself in a position where your life turns upside down, it's about small moments And it's about small moments taken one at a time. It's that old adage about how do you eat the elephant one bite at a time. How do you eat the elephant, comma, one bite at a time. And I think that's how you've got to handle these things when they're there. Other people being there that you can rely on is always very, very helpful. But there's one thing that will always be true when you find yourself in a moment like this, and that is there will be moments and there will be times when you are left with your own thoughts and your own feelings about everything that is going on around you, everything that seems to be happening that has a direct and maybe indirect influence on the way your life is moving, on the trajectory that things are going for you. And you take it one thing at a time. Find the one thing that will pick you up, even briefly, even for just a moment, and let it drive you forward, even if it's just for a few minutes. Live small. Live in those quotidian things, those little bits and pieces of things that make up your everyday, that somehow, every time you encounter them, allows you to drive forward, even just a little bit. And I think at the beginning of any period of personal turmoil that you happen to go through, that makes for a good anchor, a good start. It gives you something to focus on, and it starts to build a new sense of confidence in having something to keep your mind on, to keep your interest turned towards. And I think it gives you an opportunity to remember that these moments pass. How, when, that's might be completely out of our control. Their effects, most might be completely out of our control. But the way that it is today will not be the way that it is 1 year from now. That isn't to say that 1 year from now will be better, but it is also isn't to say that 1 year from now will be worse. It may be exactly the same. We don't know. But you aren't going to get to that day 1 year from now if you aren't able to get through today. Then you aren't going to be able to get through today if you can't get through this morning, and you aren't going to be able to get through this morning if you can't get through the next hour, and you aren't going to be able to get through the next hour if you can't get through the next 5 minutes. So what's that thing that gets you through the next 5 minutes? What's that thing that helps you be you, that helps you be the best version of you? That little thing that sits somewhere in the back of your mind that helps define your experience as a living, breathing human being. Take it, do it, stick to it. And then maybe at some point you get to reconvene with the people in your life that matter the most to you. You get to look back on moments where you feel like life has spun out of control. And you get to say, I am better off today than I was that day.